Bet on Bears fans, another edition of the Chicago Bears podcast coming your way. Pat the designer, Courtney Cronin in the building. A lot to get into on today's episode. We got a kind of injury concern update from Ben Johnson yesterday, where we got to talk about. I'll take a look at Rome Odunze last couple of slow games, if you want to say that. Now, is that a little bit of a concern? Should you be concerned? I think people are taking this way out of context right now. And should the Bears be underdogs versus the Baltimore Ravens this coming week? We'll talk about all that more on today's episode of the Chicago Bears podcast. Hit that like button, subscribe to the page, leave a 5-star review. Y'all know what to do. As always, today's episode brought to you by Underdog. Make picks, win money. Courtney, how are you doing today?
Doing well, getting ready for this game. And, 4-2 right now for this Bears team is a very different 4-2 from a year ago. And I think the players certainly realize that. But I think this fan base is starting to realize it too. I was hosting Clinton and Friends on the network this morning, and we had a caller who was like, I want to buy in. I want to have hope. But every time this has happened where they've gone on a mini win streak, 3-4 games, last year they're 4-2 going into their bye week. When you buy in, then they break your heart. This time, I think it's okay. I think it's okay if Bears fans want to buy into this, because this feels way more sustainable than the house of cards that this team was at this time last year. So I'm okay with that.
No, 100%. I think the buy-in is a great time to happen right now, because the wins you have are wins that I get it. I know how this goes, Bears fans. Anytime the Bears beat somebody, now that team sucks. I get it. I understand. Don't let them make you believe that. You shut down a Dallas offense that is still one of the best offenses in football. You shut down a run game that still, I guess 2 weeks in a row, they kind of got shut down a little bit. But you shut down a run game that going into that game was the best run game in football. You should be beating your chest a little bit. The Washington, the Dallas wins, those are good wins. And the Saints win is a one you're supposed to get. We don't often get the ones we're supposed to get. So these are good wins for the Chicago Bears. One thing that may not be a good win, though, this upcoming week, and we didn't get a definitive answer on this, but the injury concern for Tyrique Stevenson and Cole Kmet, when Ben Johnson was asked about it yesterday, he said, we don't know yet. We haven't, gotten the report back yet, but, it feels like there could be something that could be day-to-day, week-to-week. Courtney, I live in this PTSD world or BTSD world, I guess, if you want to say that, where if it could be day-to-day or week-to-week, it often ends up week-to-week. Is this something, especially from the Tyrique Stevenson point, because you got Colston Loveland at the tight end position, but with this DB room, is this something that could be a serious concern for the Chicago Bears here?
So, there really wasn't much clarity given. There's we think both players were asked about.
Yeah.
Cole goes out with a back injury in the second half, and Tyrique Stevenson has a shoulder injury. I think both were listed immediately as doubtful and never came back.
Yep.
So then you hear, could be day-to-day, week-to-week. They'll know more by Wednesday, because players came in yesterday. They went through the film. They got treatment, and then they left. Honestly, I think it's too early to tell with either of them if it's going to be something that keeps them out from, long term. But you hear week to week thrown in there, you think it's at least a game if you're just looking for context clues and all of that, which, Tyrique Stevenson is a starting DB for them. He's your starting outside corner. And even last week, we saw a little bit of Kyler Gordon moving outside. So maybe that's an experiment if Stevenson can't play this next game against the Baltimore Ravens. Maybe that's something that you see continue. But at the clip at which they're taking the ball away right now, and even when Stevenson wasn't in the game, those second half interceptions that came via your linebackers, came via Kevin Byard, I think you're feeling okay that you could get by without him for a game or two. Now, Cole Kmet, and, it felt like they were trying to feature the tight ends a little bit more last week. I still think there's a lot left on the bone there that they just haven't been able to get to. And maybe it was the weather. Maybe it was Caleb Williams' play as to why the passing game just really couldn't get off and running last week. But the way that they're running the ball, if Cole Kmet needs to be out for this week, if they need to, give him a breather and just go with Colston Loveland and Durham Smythe going into the Ravens game, maybe they call up somebody else, Steven Carlson, whoever else from your practice squad, or sign somebody this week because of Kmet's injury. I still think you'd be okay, because right now the ground game is clicking. And this seems like something that Ben Johnson wants to ride as the offense tries to figure out some of its issues. Rome Odunze, I know you mentioned at the top, he and Caleb have kind of gone quiet the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And certainly the scrambling issues with Caleb and not being able to find guys downfield, some of those things can be solved by leaning on the ground game for the time being, which could then end up by way of that, like helping out with your injury concerns on offense.
Yeah, listen, I think the Cole Kmet one, I'm not gonna say I'm not concerned about it, but after going through some of the tape here, some of those blocks were a little bit interesting that Cole threw. So I'm okay with seeing Durham Smythe out there. I do think it changes some of those, I guess if you want to call it 13 personnel runs that you saw with some outside zone. Depending on if you've got another tight end in there that can make those blocks. But I think defensively, what I love about what we're seeing out of this defense, Courtney, and why, not to say I'm not concerned. I think that not having Tyreek out there, I'd rather have him out there than not, 100%. But Al Harris said something very early on. I think Jaquan Brisker echoed this yesterday, right, about playing the system the right way. And if you play the system the right way, the ball is going to find you. I think people are going into this Ravens game with the mindset of these turnovers can't keep happening. And
Yeah, that's
I've
not
seen
sustainable.
this. I've seen this happen before in Chicago. Like you go back to the Urlacher defenses and stuff where we always said, this isn't sustainable for you to turn the ball over and to create that many forced fumbles. It's just luck. No, this is what these guys practice every day. This is what they're playing for. They're finding things on film. Al Harris can go to J-Mac before the game and say, we're getting X amount of turnovers today or takeaways today, because he's seeing what mistakes quarterbacks are making, how they're putting, where they're placing the ball and different things like that, how guys are running with the football. And he's saying, this is what we should be able to get in this game if we play the system the right way. And it's why when we talked to Al Harris before, he said, listen, it doesn't matter who you're standing across from. If you're playing the system how we teach you to play it and where you're supposed to be, you're going to be in a position to be successful. And I think that gives me a little bit more confidence in this defense being able to be okay without Tyrique Stevenson if it is a week-to-week situation.
Yeah, and I think you have to look at what their opponent has done in coughing up the football. Zay Flowers, last time that they played, because they had the bye week in week 7, like he fumbled twice. And yes, he's coming off a shoulder injury. He was questionable going into that game, but I stood right there as I saw a Rams defender peanut punch that ball out. Like, it can be done. And I feel like knowing your opponent, knowing the history there, knowing what the Ravens offense is and is not this year compared to other years, and how well the Bears defense has been playing and how well it's being coached for the takeaways. Like, the whole, I don't know if I'm a believer in the whole, it comes in waves. Like, if one happens, then there's a snowball effect. I don't know if I agree with that. I feel like it's more just, I feel like that chalks it up to luck. To me, it's good position. It's being in really good position. Kevin Byard knowing where the sideline was and where he needed to be able to pick off that ball, which was a bad throw from Spencer Rattler, and keep himself in bounds. Right at the line of scrimmage, the pressure that you're getting on the quarterback leads to TJ Edwards being able to tip that pass, and then Tremaine Edmonds being right there to pick the ball off. To come down with it. And even with Nashawn Wright, I mean, that one, if you're talking about anything that's got like luck associated with it, it was where Jaquan Brisker like pushes him to be able to, kind of guide his direction as the trajectory as he was returning that ball 38 yards the other way. But I think that this is more of a byproduct of they're seeing things differently because they're actually getting more pressure up front, which is helping the back end of this defense. If they can continue to be that aggressive, and Lamar Jackson, if he plays, if he doesn't play, like if he plays, he's a quarterback that hasn't been out there for a couple of weeks, who's coming off of a hamstring injury. How mobile is he going to be? How effective is he going to be? The chemistry, the timing, the things with the receivers, that could play into the Bears' favor. If it's Cooper Rush again, they should know that he's not going to throw the ball because they don't trust him to throw the ball. So
it's going to be the Henry game.
Yeah, well, no, unless they decide they're going to go with Snoop Huntley, who they decided inexplicably to bring in the fourth quarter of the Rams game the last time we saw them play. And it was like, how come you didn't do this earlier? It seems like this would have been a winning strategy, or maybe at least would have given you a better chance than you had. I still think I'd give the Bears defense the advantage there because of how they schemed, and maybe it was the extra week, maybe it was the opponent because of the personal connection with Dennis Allen, and he knows Spencer Rattler, he knows how to rattle a young quarterback.
Yeah.
But I think that you can say confidently that the Bears would have the edge defensively in that matchup, even though they entered this game as an underdog.
No, 100%. And I think, Courtney, I'll say this, even if Lamar Jackson plays, not to say that it is a easy win. Listen, Lamar Jackson is one of the greatest talents we've seen in football of this generation, arguably might be one of the greatest talents we've seen all time as far as dual threat quarterbacks go. Lamar will put that ball on the carpet. Lamar is a fumble god in this NFL. Now, he makes so many great plays that he kind of overcomes that. But how many times have we seen Lamar Jackson, trying to make a play, trying to get away, and that ball gets knocked out of his hands? Like, I think it almost continues to play into what this Bears defense has been really good at, which is getting the ball away. Jaden Daniels and that Commanders offense went into that game with 3 turnovers on the season. And they came out of it with 6 because the Bears were able to get 3 more in that game. It's just, to me, this is not just, like you said, this is not just the luck of the draw and the Bears are getting this early. I'm not saying you're going to have 4 turnovers every week, but could there be some crucial turnovers, some crucial takeaways, as Dennis Allen likes to call them, with Lamar Jackson in and or out? I think this is a situation where the Bears could be in a great position to still have a dominant defensive day, no matter who the quarterback is out there.
Yeah, and it's a quarterback play aside, they haven't been running the ball very effectively. Some of that's on Todd Monken, their offensive coordinator, and some of the called runs. Like, to me, the last time they played should have been the Derrick Henry show from the very start. They would get to the run, then they'd go away from it. They'd get to the goal line, they wouldn't hand it to Derrick Henry immediately. They got stopped 3 times inside the 1-yard line. That's bad. That's bad football. And that's something that I feel like as a Bears defense, you prepare for those situations. You anticipate that they would learn from that, but you also know the advantage number that you need to have down there, where you need to play the run, how you can stop those short yardage situations. And that becomes a part of your game plan, because they did it. They stopped Alvin Kamara on 4th and 1 the other day. That was a huge momentum swinging play for the Bears in the first half of that game. Forget which quarter that was. I think it was like in the second quarter. But it's those things where I think defensively the Bears are being carried by that unit right now, as the offense takes a little bit of time to figure out what its identity is. Very clearly, this feels like Bears teams of old: running game and defense that can overcome some shaky play at quarterback. But if that's what it is, and that's what it takes to be able to come away from Baltimore with a win, then you lean on that element. Then you try to contain Lamar Jackson, knowing that he's not going to probably be at 100% here, playing on a hamstring injury if he does play. I mean, he didn't practice on Monday. John Harbaugh said the hope is that week 8 he'll be playing. But if he didn't practice Monday and they're coming off a bye, that gives me a little pause that he's going to be ready for this week at all. I mean, they're 1-5. Maybe
is Monday.
Maybe there's a stretch that, like, they think, oh, okay, we're kind of out of this. Like, why am I going to push this and try to get back in? I mean, mathematically, I think their odds are still pretty decent. Far back
that
to win the
division is
division.
not great.
So, yeah, it just depends kind of how they want to play that.
Your roof's got more layers than a conspiracy podcast.
Is that a sandwich wrapper?
Ah, yes. Vintage 1988. It really builds character.
Avondale Roofing. Inspect smarter, dig deeper, and get to the core of your roof's health.
That division is not great. I would think that their mindset is still with Lamar Jackson and our team at more fortunate. I would be more concerned about the defense than the offense, but with Lamar Jackson, we still have a chance to make the playoffs. Sure. Plus, the Steelers are leading that division. We already know there's at least a 6-game losing streak coming at some point this season with Pittsburgh. Keeping this thing moving along. And I did want to say this first. Is Monday, or ask this first, is Monday for them kind of like their estimation day though? I didn't see.
No, so they came off of a bye, and I mean,
so
they don't
have
have to
actually practiced.
Well, they don't have to put out an injury report until Wednesday, just like any team. But they did have a light practice on Monday. I don't assume it would have been heavy by any stretch, but the fact that he's not out there, or he wasn't out there,
that means something.
Eye-opening.
Yeah, if you can't get out there for the light practice, how are you going to get out there for the heavy practice? So that could be something to keep an eye on, as well as Lamar going to play. That'll play into our last conversation that we're going to have today. Do want to talk about Rome Odunze and how this Bears offense is really getting itself going. Today's episode also brought to you by the Chicago Bears, the Advantage Dealer Group. Find your next Chevy, Toyota, or Acura and drive off in under 60 minutes, and they'll make your first car payment. Also brought to you by the Hard Rock Casino in Northern Indiana. Las Vegas style game in just 30 minutes from Soldier Field, exit 6 I-80 94. All right, Courtney, the concern from Bears fans is shocking to me in a way right now, with 4 wins in a row and 4 wins where it felt like, while one part of your offense was struggling, another part was incredibly successful, one of the more important parts of your offense. But Rome Odunze has had a slow couple of weeks here, I guess, if we want to call it that. I think you have to look back in the game in Washington and see some of the plays that he did make that were called back. But it feels like there's this concern that he's cooled off a little too much, and that this Bears passing offense has really not hit the ground where we've wanted to see it consistently over the last few weeks. Is that something that is a valid concern right now, especially on the Rome Odunze front?
Well, to a degree, because he's not getting targeted. It's just that for whatever reason, and you go back to the Saints game. So he has 6 targets, turns those into 2 catches for 31 yards. And those 2 catches for 31 yards, that led to a successful drive. He wasn't on the receiving end of a touchdown on that drive, but they still were moving the ball when targeting Rome Odunze. But then towards the end of the second quarter, under the 2-minute warning, when Caleb Williams gets out of the pocket and is in scramble mode, there's 3 plays that he doesn't connect with Rome Odunze on. One of which, or there's really 2 where Rome should have caught the ball. There's one that hit when Kool-Aid McKinstry was right behind him and broke up the pass. It hit Rome in the hands. When you're known as being the contested catch guy, you've got to make those. There was play week 3 against the Dallas Cowboys where Rome was at the goal line, and there was a play that was broken up from behind. That is on the receiver. He's got to make those plays. But I also think it speaks to Caleb Williams and what he told us last week, that he feels like his footwork is off when he gets out on the move. So maybe there's something there that is leading to, a little bit a dip in chemistry between him and Rome Odunze. But I wouldn't be freaking out about this, because what Ben Johnson said yesterday is accurate. There's a lot of players on this offense that have to get the ball, and the target distribution from week to week is not always going to look like it did in Detroit, where he was targeted 11 times and came away with 7 catches for 128 yards. Now, I understand they were playing from behind in that game. He scored 2 touchdowns. They had to throw the ball. But a game like last week, 2 catches for 31 yards. The week before, it would have read 3 catches for however many yards and a touchdown. I think that would have been like a 10 or 9-yard touchdown. We wouldn't be talking about that if that play wasn't called back, which was a very costly play in the second half, if it wasn't for the illegal formation. I remember talking about this on the Fantasy Football Show on ESPN2 on Sunday morning. Like, there's people sounding the alarm about Rome Odunze. I'm like, guys, if it wasn't for pre-snap penalties, which stinks that came into play there, we're talking about Rome Odunze having 5 straight games with a touchdown. And I don't think people would be freaking out. But if you look at the last 2 weeks compared to the first 4, where he was clearly, head and shoulders above the other receivers as the top target for Caleb Williams. Caleb, I don't want to say was forcing it by any means, but he was clearly looking at Rome in a lot of critical situations against Dallas and against the Raiders that would lead you to believe, okay, this relationship is flourishing the way that we expected it to, when it was very clear during training camp that Rome was wide receiver number 1. Yeah. I don't look at week 6 and 7 and think much of the lack of production, other than they start feeding him more, just like Ben Johnson said. He'll have a 10-target game at some point, and all of this will be for naught, all this, people freaking out about it, because he'll turn his production around. But it's not just on Caleb Williams, it's on Rome too, to make sure that the easy balls, the ones, and he said this to me, I sat down with him a couple weeks ago. He's like, I want people, I don't want to say it was gimme plays. I've had all gimme plays as my touchdown, but I want people to be like, how did he make that catch and then turn it into a touchdown? Those ones are being lofted to him right now, or they're being served to him, and he's got to come through with that. That one against, in the second quarter, late in the game, that one should have put the Bears in field goal range, because he should have made that catch, in the very least field goal range. So I look at it and I think that there's not a reason to panic about Rome Odunze at all, considering we know that he's going to be fed. And when you feed your best receiver more targets is just going to be a better thing for this offense. So I think it's fine. I know a lot of Bears fans are like, what happened to him? He was off to such a fat start. He cooled off. It's a product of the last week. Because I think it's a completely different story if we're talking about him week 5. He would have had under 100 yards receiving regardless, but he still would have had a touchdown to his name had it not been wiped off.
And I think this is my thing right now with a lot of the concerns. Again, talking about the defensive concerns earlier, the offensive concerns going into this Ravens game, Courtney, like, I don't think Bears fans should be concerned right now about where the offense is. You had a tough passing day in conditions that were bad for most of the day. Your center had a couple of brain farts where he took the blame on those, basically saying, I was on the wrong count and I don't know why I didn't snap the football. I double clutched it. Like, you had those kind of miscues happening. We've never seen stuff like that happen with Drew Dahlman, really. And so I would assume that's not going to be the storyline of your future. Those are 2 opportunities for you to cash in. You forget you were at the 1 on those plays. I think that your offense is still moving. You got your running game going, and you've got a head coach who right now is willing to call plays based on what's working that day. That's not a lot of head coaches in the NFL. There's not a lot of guys that are going to say, I'm going to change what my game plan was to go out here and try and make this work. That felt like a very run-heavy day where you wanted to get Caleb Williams involved more, but Caleb couldn't find it. And so you continue to just go, well, they can't stop the run. We're going to lock in on this. I think when you look at the totality of the offense isn't broken. There's a couple of things here and there that have hadn't been an issue in the last week's game. I think the center and the quarterback being a little bit off really probably threw the passing game off. When you look at the week before, there's some calls that are inexplicable. Like that touchdown to Rome. You talk about those tough catches. That was a tough catch. He comes down with that. We're having a completely different conversation about the Washington second half. The Bears kind of run a little bit of rough shot over Washington in that second half. And I know you can't count the plays that don't happen or that don't count, but I think you still see an offense that is moving the ball down the field and putting you in positions to score. Would I like more 7 and 3? 100%. And I think that goes to the pre-snap penalties. But I don't feel like you're dealing with a broken offense right now.
No, I wouldn't call it broken, but I do think that they're just not capitalizing on the momentum that the defense is presenting them. Like, you look at their possessions here, like every other one in the first half was either a turnover, takeaway, turnover on downs, a missed field goal, yet they come away with 2 field goals and a touchdown. That's not enough. Like that, to me, that's just not enough when the defense is playing that well. And even in the second half, 2 interceptions, 1 punt, and then the game runs out. And of course, that last interception, they get to go in 4-minute mode. They get to run the ball. That's good. That's a good thing for the offense to be able to control the game and not make it a game, or not allow them to come back in the game in the fourth quarter. 26-14 doesn't indicate what this game really felt like, because there was that middle 8 that Ben Johnson talked about where the defense gave up the 57-yarder to Chris Olave. It's a big explosive. And then the offense gets the ball back. And then like that, they're just like off the field. Like that was bad. That was not good. And I don't think that means the offense is broken. I think that's more of like an execution issue, certainly from the quarterback. It felt like there were times where Caleb Williams, when he would drop back, he'd scramble. He couldn't find anybody. Was he trying too hard to make the big play there? Why not take off and run? The fact that there were no rushing yards for Caleb Williams,
that was shocking
in this game. It's a little weird because
we're getting killed on the quarterback runs.
Kyler Murray did it. Drake May did a little bit. Certainly Jackson Dart, I think, had the most against them. Like, that was weird to me because Ben Johnson has talked about using Caleb. I don't know what the exact word was, but I'll say sparingly. Like, you don't want to make it be you don't want him as your leading rusher. That would not be like indicative, I think, of a good game plan. But to not even do it like a little bit, that's just something that you've got to correct. It doesn't mean the offense is broken, but I think that it's more of a matter of you have to capitalize off of these takeaways because your defense has 16 right now. Whether that slows, whether it continues at this clip is anybody's guess. Can it? I don't know if it'll be 4 every single game, but to come away with at least 1 or 2, you're going to be feeling pretty good about yourself. Kevin Byard is tied for the lead right now with 4 interceptions among all defensive players. It's a good place to be in. Your offense has to carry the weight, though. We haven't seen them play a full complementary football game just yet. Maybe that's because it's the first half of the season and they're still learning it, but it's not the end of the world that they came away from a game like this where the passing offense wasn't having the best day, but they still came away with a win because we've been saying for weeks, the ground game, why can't they run the ball? And people taking a look at that more closely than the wins against the Cowboys and the Raiders and say, oh, I can't run the ball. But you still won the game. It's a matter of it's winning ugly, as we know, is still winning. They didn't really win ugly in this game because they were in control in the fourth quarter, but it's fixing those things at the end of the first half and early on in the third quarter, that if you don't allow those 2 touchdowns, I feel like it's a completely different story. And that maybe we're looking at, certainly, you can say what you want about this defense and how good it is, but maybe we're saying something different about the offense. If they had a chance to get on the field sooner in the third quarter, they come out, they make a statement, and their first drive of the second half doesn't result in just a field goal after taking off, 5-6 minutes on the clock.
No, 100%. I think that, I get it. I think it's a very difficult way to judge an offense. Literally going, well, everything worked this week and then only one thing worked this week. And I feel like that's just football. I feel like even the best teams go through that. Pat Mahomes has games where it's like, oh, can't get Travis Kelce going, but we're able to get, one of our receivers going, or it feels like every team goes through those moments, and you're doing that with wins on the other side of it. I think that's always going to be my biggest thing. We were having this conversation last year, Courtney, with losses. We were having this conversation about can't figure it out, can't get the run game going, kind of got the run game going, and you lost all the games that we talked about where you thought maybe you were seeing something moving in the right direction. Thomas Jones, or not Thomas Jones, Thomas Brown took over. All of a sudden, the offense looked a little bit more unlocked, and they're moving the ball down the field, and they're scoring points, and you were losing games.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think to be having this conversation 7 weeks into Ben Johnson and be sitting here talking about it's not perfect right now. They understand it's not perfect. They're on the players' heels to get things perfect, as close to perfect as possible, right? And you're 4-2 right now. This is a great place for Bears fans to be in. I don't think you should be panicked about this at all, especially coming up against a defense. And we had to talk about this too, Courtney. The Ravens just kind of aren't good defensively. No matter Lamar plays or he doesn't play, the Ravens are a bad defense right now. We got to talk about that coming up next. But first, we do got to tell you guys all about Underdog here. Courtney, the NBA is back tonight, and I think it's a great time to make a nice little NBA Underdog play. They got a gimme pick on here where basically if Kevin Durant breathes, you win. Literally, it's a points, rebounds, and assists. It should have been 32 points per game. Literally 0.0. Take the higher on that one. Are there any other games that you're looking at tonight that you'd be interested in seeing a player from? We got Stephen Curry, 26.5 points, higher or lower. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 31.5 points, higher or lower. Maybe a Luka, and of course they got the points and the rebounds and all of that stuff in there as well. Anybody you want to take a look at there, Court?
I would say the Warriors, because I know Kuminga and I think Jimmy Butler, they're both probable, but I'm going to go ahead and I will take the reigning MVP in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and I will go higher than that point total against the Rockets.
Going higher on the point total there, and you know what? It's going to be a Luka show because LeBron has sciatica.
Yeah, and he won't be back for 3 or 4 weeks.
Courtney, when you get real old man diseases, or not diseases, that's the wrong. What is it? Real old man injuries. Yeah. That's the sign. That's the point where you go.
He's not going to finish the season on the Lakers. I hope everybody knows that. He's going to end up not being thrilled with what his role has become. He'll barely play up until December probably, and then trade deadline in January, he'll be somewhere else. He'll get to go finish his career out. It's going to be expensive for the inquiring team unless he doesn't play much, doesn't look like himself, and a team's just all right, well, the price is lower now. We can get LeBron. Because remember, he has no trade clause in his contract. Yeah. So he gets to dictate the terms of where he goes. I do not believe he finishes his career in season number 23 with the Lakers. I think he goes somewhere else.
You got a team in mind, maybe? Is this going to be one of those ugly ones where we go oh, you shouldn't be in that jersey. That feels wrong. Or is this going back to Cleveland?
I don't. It's not Cleveland.
The Chicago Bulls. Dang it!
I mean, Dallas would be a fun full circle.
be
What the
nuts.
heck? How'd that happen? Sort of thing. But to see him and Kyrie finish out together, I'd be down for that.
That'd be interesting to see. Dallas.
They were a team that was rumored to have been interested in him.
That is true.
During the offseason.
That is very true. Maybe he wants to play with, with Kevin Durant one last time. They got a million things to trade away. They're all in. I don't know. Hey, make sure that you guys tap in with Underdog. Download the app today. Sign up with the promo code CBP to score $100 in bonus funds or bonus entries when you play your first $5. That's promo code CBP. Underdog. Make picks, win money. EO, cue the disclaimer. Must be 18 years or older, 19 or older in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 or older in Colorado for some games, 21 or over in Arizona, Massachusetts, and Virginia, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/play and get terms _DFS_.html for details. Offer not valid in Maryland, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. Welcome back in here on the Chicago Bears podcast. Path of Designer Courtney Cronin here, talking about Underdog. Courtney, we got to talk about, should the Chicago Bears be underdogs? I think this is an interesting one. We've kind of broken down the game a little bit, talking about some of the things that we feel like the Bears should still be successful at. But Courtney, you were on the sideline for that last Ravens game, I believe, for ESPN Radio, and that defense sucks. Like, I'm sorry. You can add Roquan Smith back into it. They're bad. Like, no matter what you want to say about, Lamar Jackson coming back, what does Roquan add? Roquan can't play all 11 positions at once.
And we don't even know if he's going to be healthy. Like, we have no idea whether he's going to be healthy for this game or not.
Like, I think the Bears, I understand what this conversation is. Ravens back against the wall. Maybe if Lamar doesn't play, you view this as kind of a trap game situation, I guess. But they don't look like a very good football team right now, and they're a 6.5-point favorite. I could understand 3 at home because basically that's just you're the home team and we don't really believe in the other team. But is this a concern of like Vegas doesn't believe in the Bears 4-2 at all, that the Ravens are a 6.5-point favorite?
It could be. I think that, defensively, they're a mess right now. They're bottom 2 in sacks. They do not pressure the quarterback. Their entire secondary, it has been a question. I mean, you forget Jair Alexander didn't play in that game. Whatever the heck happened to him, he has fallen off a cliff since they brought him in. Kyle Hamilton was back. Marlon Humphrey was back. Like, those are 2 injuries that were, you would have thought last time around would have made them a different looking defense. They didn't look that different. They weren't opportunistic with the takeaways. 17 points is not a lot that they allowed to the Los Angeles Rams, especially in a game where Puka Nacua went out before halftime. But they've allowed 194 points in their first 6 games they've played, including 4 of 5 times, which they've allowed their opponent, 4 of 6 times, but they've allowed their opponent to score 35 or more. Not saying that the Bears can go in there and put up 35 points. They've been in the comfortable range, 25, 26. I think that could honestly get it done against this Ravens team, knowing the concerns on offense. But really, to me, this defense has been so disjointed. It's not the same defense that people have feared, that teams have feared over the last couple of years in Baltimore. There were questions going into the bye and nothing has happened, but there were questions about Zach Orr's job security as a defensive coordinator. Like, you think that that's a good sign for this defense? Like, I put out a tweet on Sunday after the win, like, hey, they've got a favorable stretch coming up. You've got the Ravens on the road. We know what their defense is like. Trey Hendrickson, not in the Cincinnati Bengals defense, makes them a completely different defense. We know what that team looks like. They play them 2 weeks from now. And you've got the Giants in week 10, and you see that this is a team that just allowed 33 points in the fourth quarter. How is that not a favorable stretch here? Like, I'm so stunned that, and I get it, people are looking at that saying, well, they have more confidence in those other 3 quarterbacks, Lamar, Flacco, and I guess Jackson Dart. You're saying you have more confidence in those quarterbacks and those offenses going against your offense, like toe-to-toe. You're saying you have more faith there. I'm looking at this and saying Ben Johnson can be opportunistic in the way that he schemes against defenses that have notable flaws in them. And I think that that's a fair thing that like you should absolutely expect to have 2-1, 3-0, probably not 3-0, but 2-1. You should absolutely be an attainable goal for this stretch for the Bears. I don't, it's baffling to me that people think this is like setting up for them to be 0-3 by the time week 11 rolls around.
Yeah, it's listen, I get it. We all got a little PTSD out here, but I think based off of what we've seen, if your expectation is that, and even if Vegas's expectation is that the Bears are going to crap the bed versus the Baltimore Ravens, it's an expectation of something we haven't seen this season. That would be that the Bears are going to be an unprepared football team for the game, that the Bears are not going to be able to get anything going offensively, which we haven't seen that in any week. I know, right, the totality of the game for the full 4 quarters, has the offense been dominant for 4 straight quarters. In the Dallas game, maybe you could say that, but outside of that, no. But that's also just football. These other guys get paid to do a job too on the other side of the football. Sometimes they get stopped. Sometimes they slow you down. Sometimes they stop the run. Sometimes they break up the pass. I don't think that we've been unprepared in any of these situations, though. In fact, I think the Bears have been overprepared, which is why they've been able to overcome their own mistakes in games. And more times than not, when we're talking about the Bears having offensive struggles or defensive struggles, it's because they're being penalized for something that they know they shouldn't have done, or some of the crazy calls that we got. The Jaquan Brisker one, like, that's the black eye of the NFL right now. That roughing the passer call is, forget the tush push. The tush push is whatever. Stop it. Figure it out. I don't care. That's the black eye of the NFL right there. But like, I just don't believe that all of a sudden when we play a depleted Ravens team, a dying Bengals team, and maybe Flacco gets them back on track offensively. I think we saw the unction. That was a great game to watch. It's insane that Aaron Rodgers could still throw a football 70 yards like that. And then you've got a Giants team that, yeah, they looked great for 3 quarters, but wow, what a collapse. I haven't seen a collapse like that in a long time, at least since Matt Eberflus was here. Like, that's a situation to me where you should feel very confident as a Bears fan based on what we're seeing from this coaching staff and how they've had this team ready.
Yeah, I think the proof will be in these 3 games, like you mentioned, with the coaching staff, the position that these players are put in. Because right now at 4-2, it feels like a big reason why this 4-2 feels different than a year ago is that you have competent coaching. You have coaching that you can lean on, that you have a game plan offensively that's going to work, and a defensive game plan that's not going to lead to a performance where you're in prevent, just trying to keep things in front of you in critical situations late in the game. They're an attacking defense. This is what they said they were going to be going into this season, and that's what they've shown. So against 2 teams on the road and 1 team when you come home that first week of November, or second week of November, I think they should feel confident that they can be more evenly matched than maybe Vegas says they could be right now with the Baltimore Ravens, because the Ravens have been favored in 2 games this year. They haven't covered in either of those games. They're 6.5-point favorites in this one. I think the line should be a little bit lower because we also don't know. And I wouldn't be surprised if Lamar doesn't play in this game, that line's changing.
The line's going to get a lot closer.
So I don't think that, like, I know that Bears fans are some Bears fans are a little skeptical of like where, how they're viewed right now, and that like, okay, well, it was fun while it lasted. No, like, this Ravens defense is not very good. Like, they have not been able to put it together, and it's not like they haven't gotten guys back from injury. They were super banged up. Matabike went out, so you don't have your your best interior pass rusher for the season. He's gone. I believe he had a neck injury. Yep. But you get Kyle Hamilton back. Didn't really do much. You get Marlon Humphrey back. Didn't really result in much on the back end of that defense against the Rams. I don't think it's like as far-fetched to believe that the Bears should be favored in this game and should come away with a win. I don't think that that's like the wrong way of looking at it, not based on what you're seeing on offense, but mostly just like what you're seeing defensively with this Ravens team. Yeah,
and I know, like, it feels like Derrick Henry maybe got himself going. I think he was not called upon in some crucial situations last week, but still 24 carries for 122 yards. He was 5.1 yards per carry.
A lot of that was when they were trailing, when they figured out, oh wait, we should have stuck with this from the very get-go.
Yeah, 100%. Like it's one of those situations where if that's what they have to use to beat you, it seems like you've actually figured some of that out. And guess what? If it truly is just Derrick Henry carrying guys for 5 yards every play, he's Derrick Henry. Like, we've seen him do that to some of the best defenses in football. Sometimes you got to tip your hat and say the other guy went out there and made a play. How can we get the ball out of his hands? And to me,
good test to see if the run defense can hold up, though, because
100%.
they like Alvin Kamara last week, because Kendre Miller was hurt in the first half. Kamara had to keep playing, and the team came away with 44 rushing yards total.
Yep.
Like, that's a very good feeling for this Bears defense in trying to like continue the streak of a good game plan in stopping the run. Now, Derrick Henry will get his, but if you can hold him under 90, which, they haven't, like, I mean, the Rams had not allowed a 90-yard rusher outside of week 2 or whenever they play the Tennessee Titans. Henry was the second one, but he still didn't break the game open. If you can hold him under 100, I think that is a very good sign for this Bears defense, because they're healthy right now up front. I mean, they're apparently so healthy that they don't even need to get Austin Booker onto the active roster right now. Based on what Ben Johnson said, they had other guys that were playing that they felt, clearly Dominique Robinson, they clearly felt were better options than getting somebody off of IR that, he did leave the door open. He said maybe they could help us out pretty soon, but you did that against the Saints without Grady Jarrett and without Austin Booker, who was healthy and able to play, and you'd think would add something not only to the pass rush, but to the run defense as well. So I don't think it's wrong to think that they can handle their own against Baltimore.
We'll see what ends up happening. I will say, and I do agree with Bears fans in this regard, Caleb got to play better this week. I think this is a, if this turns into the Derrick Henry run show, that means that you need to have that dominant offense, the dominant pass offense that it looked like versus the Dallas Cowboys, and see if we can get some of those things working yet again. Appreciate you guys for tuning in and show love. As always, we're going to get up out of here, man. For Courtney Cronin, boy Pat the designer, back at it again. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think the Chicago Bears should be underdogs this week? 6.5 dog is crazy. Like you said, I do think Lamar brings that back to earth. Y'all stay safe out there, Chicago. Big bear downs to everybody out there. One love. Peace.